What is going on, Mad Hatters, and welcome back to the Madhouse. And today we are talking all things Amber Steel. We're talking Beyond the Horizon. We're talking Whole New World, Be Our Guest, Docks, Mines, Hyper Aggro, Discard, pretty much everything you can think of. And we're talking about it in today's video. We've got like 12 or 13 different lists, and I'm going to talk about why you might run some over others, what kind of local meta, what are some tech cards you could throw in there. So it's going to be a lot of Amber Steel. So if that's what you love, or if that's what you're trying to prepare against, this is the video for you. All that being said, let me know in the comments, okay? Is there something I'm missing? Is there some kind of magic thing that you've got that you haven't shared yet, but now is your time to shine before set champs? Let me know what kind of deck are you most excited to play this weekend. All right. The last thing before we get into the list is remember, hit me up. Find me on Discord. The link's going to be in the description down below. Find me in Discord. Post your list, all right? Post how you did. Post what you want to brag about. Maybe it's your store. Maybe it's the list that you made all by yourself. I don't care. Let me know whether you win a championship, Matt, whether you make top cut, you want to brag about your friend. Let me know. Join the Discord and let me know in the Discord, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into our first list. And our first list is one of my homebrews, all right? Now, this homebrew is no Whole New World. And like I said, we've got Whole New World in a little bit, but this is kind of a culmination of Sky's and Ed's list. And we'll talk about those here in a little while. Those do come up in the video, but what's happening here is one of the things that I found with Skies and Ed's list is that they lost really badly against Red Blue. Particularly Ed's. Ed's was definitely not great against Red Blue. Skies, with his reiterations going into the PPG, it did a little bit better. He was able to go 1-2 and into all of his Red Blue matchups, I believe. So with this list, I'm just looking at trying a little bit to play into Red Blue, knowing that Red Blue is as powerful as it is. I think that Red Blue Shark is the strongest deck in the format. Again, it just doesn't have any bad matchups, but for this, we're trying to find a way to beat Amber Steel, run Amber Steel, but also beat Red Blue. And I think this is a step in the right direction, and the big thing that we have here is going to be these bare necessities. One of the things, and again, we'll talk about Rob's list here in a little while, is Discard is really good against Red Blue right now because they don't have the Hiram Flaversham anymore. So when you run things like Bare Necessities, it can be really strong. So if you're on the play and then you play Cindy on turn 1 into Bare Necessities on turn 2 and you take their 1 ramp, they probably just lose there. There's a reason that DKP tells you if you don't have ramp, you alter 6, if not 7 every time because you need that turn 2 ramp. So Bare Necessities comes in and takes that turn 2 ramp from them. Or you take their Inkable. Those are really important, okay? So make sure when you're using Bare Necessities, even if it's turn 2 and you can't take their ramp, right, because you're on the draw, look at their uninkables and look at their inkables. And if they have a whole bunch of inkables, or a whole bunch of uninkables, it might be more worth it to take that inkable, so then they have a really hard time and they're forced to ink something they don't want to ink. So with that being said, what else is going on in the list? Well, we're running the Be Our Guest over the Whole New World as well as the Dock. So that's our draw package here, as well as kind of a pseudo draw with Ariel and Let the Storm Rage On kind of replacing themselves. But what we're doing here is we have agency into the Amber Steel list. We still have the Rhino, the super powerful Rhino. We still have the Cindy on turn 1, but then we have our 6 Singer 4s, and you're going to see a lot of 6. I love 6 Singer 4s because we don't want to see that many, because I think that's a big reason that Ed's list isn't super great into Red Blue, or isn't just good at all into Red Blue. It's just too many 1-questers. So in this case, we opt to run 6. I like that number. It's a good chance you're going to see one of those Singer 4s that you really want to see, because you want to be able to sing Zeus, or you want a card that can live so you can play Strength of a Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, Bare Necessities even, or a card that lives so you can play Be Our Guest to search for an Aerial, because you really want that 1, 2, 3, right? That is so important in this current meta. Meanwhile, we still have some Smees to help with the speed of the deck because you still have to quest for 2. Now, the other thing going on here is we're on the Beast and we're still on Aerial Sonic Warrior. Now, I find Beast to be extremely powerful in this current meta, and for a couple different reasons. As always, Beast requires an answer from your opponent. Your opponent has to figure something out. What are they going to do to slow Beast down? And in this case, with so much Amber Steel, a lot of the time it's going to be Strength or let the Storm Rage on, maybe the Zeus, but a lot of the time they've already used their Zeus at this point. They've already used their Zeus to take out your Rhino, take out your Singer 4, maybe even your Aerial. So your Beast comes down and they're stuck. Because if they let the Storm Rage on to stop him, if you have Rapunzel, there's a good chance you just win now. Because you get this second Singer 2 down, you get to draw 2, and that's if you didn't challenge with Beast first, so then maybe you draw 3. There's just so many benefits to doing it. So Beast, it forces your opponent to answer, and they have to remove Beast to be able to answer him successfully. So just really powerful. And when Red isn't running a lot of Medusa right now, then Beast just is very difficult to get rid of, and he just continues to draw you cards. It forces a B prep a lot of the time out of red-blue. The other thing is, with Beast, don't be afraid to quest, okay? If you just keep them there drawing a whole bunch of cards, but you're still at 2 lore or whatever, it doesn't matter how many cards you have. You're just gonna lose. So do not be afraid to quest with Beast. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts of Beast, is knowing when you've drawn enough cards and when you need to start turning him sideways. And then with Aerial Sonic Warrior, she's just so good. When we don't have things like a whole new world, it's a little bit harder for us to get all the songs that we need. And it's a little bit harder for us to get all the stuff that we need to succeed and control the board. So we run Aerial Sonic Warrior because when we dock and we draw 2 cards, then if one of those cards are a song, even to let the Storm Rage on, then we can deal 5 damage to something. If it's Be Our Guest, if it's we get a Bare Necessities, we can still deal 3 damage to something. And that's extremely powerful. Meanwhile, Aerial, phenomenal for Rapunzel value. It takes a lot for your opponent to answer Aerial, so they use a whole bunch of resources on her. And when decks don't run a whole lot of draw right now, then if they waste a bunch of resources on Aerial, that's also a win for you. So the deck, it actually works really well. I do enjoy it. I think 3 Bare Necessities is really big. I was on 1, and then I went to 2, and then I'm up to 3. 4 would be too many, because you don't really want to see Bare Necessities against some other decks. So I think 4 is too many, but I've really liked the number 3. The same with the Beast that you'll see here. But yeah, it's felt good. If you wanted to get a 4th dock in there, you definitely could by replacing something, but I've enjoyed the list. But let's move on to the next one, and the next one is the Super Hyper Aggro list. This is from the very beginning of the set, and it still just does the same exact thing that it did before, and it's still hyper aggro. You win on turn 5, you play Daisy into a Piglet, into a Prince, or into a Lady plus Prince, and you turn everything sideways, and your opponent just loses because they can't answer, the Prince. They can't deal with it. The list does really struggle against Amber Steel, though. If they start Cindy on 1 and you don't, you can be in a really bad position. So that's something to keep in mind. If they get that Rhino down, that can be really difficult for you. So, but this is it's just hyper aggro with a little bit more we got the Rhino in there because Rhino is just so important into all this other Amber Steel that's running around now. And then I've opted to go 2 Rapunzels and 4 Sphins. So we've cut the Lawrences to go 4 Sphins and 2 Rapunzel, because Finn is just really good at readying your characters, and that's a lot. He's questing for 2. He comes in ready. He can't be brawled or baby Caesar'd. That's all really important stuff, so I really like that. If you wanted to go more hyper aggro, you could of course cut the Rhino package here, and you could go something like Mulans or Nalas. Nalas might be better. And then up here you go Lawrence. So that is something that you could try, and I think you'd find a lot of success with. The Rapunzel's Tower, just making it extremely difficult for purple to answer your stuff, as well as Amber Steel. So yeah, it's the deck, again, it's still fun, it's still great, it still wins games extremely early, and I think you could do very well at a set champs with a list like this. So next up, we have Surfing Disaster. Now, Surfing Disaster, I tried a lot of Beyond the Horizon when the list or the card first came out. Like in theory, it sounds super good. Sing together 7, so we can sing it on turn 3, make your opponent discard their hand, and you discard your hand and draw these cards, or you have the option to, right? And it just sounds great. And I could never really get it to work the way I wanted it to. So I kind of left it alone for a while. And then my buddy Freddie down from Florida, really great steel song player. I talk about him pretty much any Amber Steel video that I do. He gave me some inspiration with a list that he was running at the time, and I kind of took it. I was playing around with it. I made it work to kind of what I wanted to do with it. And I've got to admit, thanks to Freddie, that inspiration was what I needed to try and figure out how to make Beyond the Horizon work. And so the deck, it plays very differently. There's a lot of kind of thinking that goes into it, because when is the right time to Beyond the Horizon? And that is extremely difficult. If you thought trying to figure out the right time to use A Whole New World was difficult, wait until you try and really sit down and try Beyond the Horizon, because it's normally not turn 3. Even if you have this great Cinderella into Troubadour into Lawrence or whatever, like it's just not always on turn 3. Sometimes it's on turn 5 or 6, or it's just such an interesting card, and it's very situational. Some decks you never use it against, but it's great against aggro. It's really good against red-blue, and so that was a big inspiration behind wanting to use it more. I love beating red-blue, and this list does it very well, because you can go Cindy into Ursula, and then you can go Beyond the Horizon on turn 3 to make them discard their hand, and that is really great, because a lot of the times, maybe they kept 4 or something, and you just want to get them down, and now they're stuck inking every card they draw from this point forward, trying to get to that 7 to that 8 ink. So there's been a lot of games that I win because they're in top deck mode for so long. So then I get one of these beasts down, and then I start drawing all these cards, and they have to figure out how to answer beast. So then they top deck the B prep, and they B prep because the beast keeps drawing me cards. So then I can just go wide after that while they're still in top deck mode. Namari's in here because another card that I've really learned to love this set, her being able to cycle cards you don't need anymore. So Beyond the Horizon can become like a very bad card. So what happens is you might end up with 1 or 2 of them in your hand at some point, and you run Namari. So if you get that Namari down, then you can cycle that card out because you don't need it anymore. And then, of course, Bare Necessities. It's a phenomenal card into red-blue, because now if you don't see Beyond the Horizon on turn 3, then you have the ability to, sing that Bare Necessities on turn 2. Or maybe you sing Bare Necessities on turn 2 with Cinderella, look at their hand, discard their ramp card, and then you can play Beyond the Horizon on turn 3, and they're like, what do they do then? And they lose. That's what they do. So you still have the ability to go a little bit faster with the Smees. Unfortunately, we're down to 1 Lawrence, and that's because I wanted to push the aerials. And the right move might actually be to cut the Lawrences altogether and go 3 aerials because of Amber Steel. And I say that because our only draw is Beast and Beyond the Horizon. Now, we have Pseudo Draw, we have Aerial, we have Let the Storm Rage On, and Beast, Beyond the Horizon, and Rapunzel, of course. But so Aerial, what happens is when we're only drawing 3 cards with Beyond the Horizon, what can happen is we can set that up, and if we have an aerial down, we sing together, and then we sing Beyond the Horizon. If we only see 1 song, again, we could do 5 damage with Zeus, and then another 3 damage to something else with with Aerial Sonic Warriors effect. So it might be the right answer. Cut Lawrence altogether, go Aerial, and that would probably feel really good as well. Or you could cut the Lawrence altogether to go 3 Namari as well. But I've liked the list. Again, it's felt great. Huge shout out to Freddie for the idea. I, of course, had to cut mine down to 60 and figure out how to make that work. But, to each their own. So next up on, though, we have another really well-known steel song player, and that being Habibi. And you'll notice the name. I titled this Habibi with some new and old, and it probably should be old and new. Whatever. But what's going on here is we saw Rob find a lot of success at the PPG event against red-blue and against Amber Steel as well. I think his top 8 was 2 red blues and 2 amber steels, but we saw him find a lot of success with his discard package. And then what happens, and then it's really good against Amber Steel as well, especially when we're running so many docks and Be Our Guest, and that's really popular right now. So cards like You Have Forgotten Me, where you force them to discard that dock, really powerful. You can use Bare Necessities early to get rid of the Storm Rage on a turn 2. Even if you skip playing your turn 1 because you're on the draw, you can sing play Bare Necessities as an action on turn 2 and just kind of see what they're working with. Maybe they have a strength and a lot of uninkable, so you ink that strength, or you just get rid of the song anyways, the Zeus, so you can play your Troubadour. Like, there's a lot of options there. And the reason I mentioned new and old is because Habibi ran You Have Forgotten Me. I think it was either I think it was 2 sets ago now. He ran it at the ETB, their really big event up there. And, I remember I was casting with JDZ and I was like, that, it's not really for me, but it puts in work, because it does. Discard is extremely powerful on the draw. So when you pair that with steel, which is also extremely powerful on the draw, then you have this deck that does great, phenomenal things on the draw, and it really kind of eliminates that play draw disparity that is just so prevalent in Lorcana. Meanwhile, the new in this is Habibi is huge on his 3 to 4 Naveen's. He just thinks that's the best thing since sliced bread. And one of the advantages of the Naveen is you'll notice that we've cut the daisies out, and a lot of that is because Amber Steel is so prevalent right now, and we don't want to give other Amber Steel decks cards, things like that. But the Prince Naveen can work as like a mid-range kind of Daisy Duck, essentially, because now you play this mid-range setup, right? You go Cinderella into Troubadour, Lawrence, Ariel, Pete, whatever, and then you play Naveen. So if you do go something like 1-2 Pete Naveen, you can really take back the board at that point, because you get Naveen that can sing Zeus, and then Pete that can sing Strength, and that all feels really good. So meanwhile, the Naveen, of course, questing for 2, so where you're not questing super aggro early on, you are questing for 2 later on. And then when you run, so instead of the Daisy to help you beat Red Blue, we opt to throw in the You Have Forgotten Me's and the Bare Necessities that are going to help you beat that early game of Red Blue by shutting down their ramp, giving you time for the Naveens to quest, for your Lawrence's, Smees, find the Petes. And then Namari, again, really good against Red Blue, because they are forced, if you play a Namari, they have to play a B prep. Like, they have to take it out somehow. Hades, B prep, Maleficent, Dragon, because that Namari is going to be able to take out their cast or their manner all in one turn, because her strength is going to be so high. And then, of course, we're on Whole New World, and those Naveens being that big card to sing Whole New World. So yeah, Habibi's new and old, and I think if you wanted to run something that's a little bit more spicy, this is definitely going to do it, running that discard package while still running Whole New World. Remember, You Have Forgotten Me is not a song, so you cannot find it off of Ariel, so keep that in mind if you're looking for that, all right? So next up on our one more change I think you can make: cut 2 Lawrences, go 2 Ursulas. Like I said, I'm really high on the 6 Singer 4s. But next up, we've got Diggy Diggy Hole. We've got Lady and Her Rhino. Shout out to Kurt Spice that really showed us that Diggy Diggy Hole is definitely still on the map. And in this case, the only difference between this list and the list I recently did in a video featuring Diggy Diggy Hole, the gameplay commentary, is we've added in the 2 Goofies for the 2 Rapunzel's Towers. Is that the right move? You can choose, right? They both have their merits. Rapunzel's Tower makes for great Rapunzel's targets, right? That 3 health, it makes it extremely difficult. Your Piglet now has to be Zeused instead of let the Storm Rage on. Like, that's massive. I mean, there's a lot of perks to it. So, but Goofy has the perk of readying your stuff. Now playing Goofy means your opponent can't take things out in a few turns. You can play Goofy while you have Mine and Happy, or Mine if you have mine down like later in the game, so you play Goofy on turn 4 and then you have a mine down already, or you have a mine on turn 5, so you play Goofy on 4, play mine on turn 5, you move Goofy to mine and to ping anything, to ping you ping Rapunzel, right? You ping Daisy Duck, and then you quest with those characters. So if you have a Smee and a Daisy Duck down, you dealt 1 damage to Daisy Duck, so Goofy will then ready Smee and Daisy Duck, and now they can't be banished, right? They have to be taken out by another mean, by a lever, a song, whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of ability there. So just something to consider. And he quests for 2. So if you top deck this over top decking a mine when you just need any character, you have that advantage as well. So if you haven't tried Goofy, give him a try. You might be surprised at what he can do. And if you still wanted to run Rapunzel's Tower, like I said, I think that is still extremely powerful to run in the list. So next up on our list, we have another Whole New World list, and this one not much different than the Habibi list that I just featured a little bit ago, but this one instead focusing on a couple different options. We've got the 3 bare necessities that I mentioned that I really like right now because it's really good against red blue. Again, if you sing that on turn 2 on the play, you probably just win. Like, it's that great. Like, it's that good. So next up, we've got our 6 Singer 4s helping you really control that Amber Steel matchup. We're running the 2 Lawrences instead of 1, and then of course we're on Beast. And I talked about this earlier. I think Beast is just so powerful right now. I think Beast has a lot of ability to just win you the game flat out because they have to play not suboptimally. Like, some people will. They get so worried about Beast, they ping it with something. Purple has to send an Elsa to exert them, and then they have to trade something into it. Like, there's just so many possibilities with Beast, and I just find him so powerful right now. Because you can't even, like, Blurple, they like to go Genie into Elsa, right, on their turn 3 into turn 4. So I guess you wouldn't have Beast down at that point, so that doesn't work. But regardless, Beast, it's just an extremely powerful card, and that's kind of the whole point. That's why I'm so high on him right now. And then we are on the 2 Naveen's, and the reason for that is we want something. We need to be able to sing Whole New World, right? Ariel is not a reliable card to sing Whole New World. Beast isn't the greatest Whole New World play, right? Because you want to keep him turned sideways, you want to keep him readied. So we opt to run the Naveen's because he can just come down, he can sing that Whole New World, and things feel fine. If you wanted, you could throw in Bianca's or Gaston's. You're not wrong to do so. It's just they do it a little bit differently. Everything's a little bit slower at this point, so you have to keep that in mind because Naveen's playing it on turn 4, whereas Bianca, Gaston could of course sing it on turn 4, but Bianca's not going to be able to until turn 5. But another good Whole New World list, a Whole New World list that I think is good into red blue. Even later, bare necessities they put in a lot of work because there's a really good chance you play Whole New World, and then you have essentially 7 ways to get rid of B prep, which is really good. Really, really, really good. So another fun Whole New World list. Give it a try. All right, next up, we've got Sky. And Sky we've seen a lot of recently on different streams. He did really well at the PPG event. He did really well at the events that they had in Nebraska. I think there were 2Ks. His list has changed a little bit, but not by much. And again, this is a very mid-range list. You'll see no Lawrences because Lawrence, being great Rapunzel targets and everything, they've opted to cut the Lawrence for things like the 3 on here, the 3 on Beast, the 4 Be Our Guest, the 4 Docs, things like that. So this list, of course, he ran I Find Him, I Flatten Him, so he could try and beat items. And I saw a tweet from Sky after the PPG event. He's like, hey, I added this 1 card to beat items, and all this 1 card did, I never saw items, but it did lose me a game. Take that how you want it. If you wanted to cut I Find Him, I Flatten Him, I'd suggest going to a 4th Smee or a 4th beast. You decide what you'd rather have here. Things to keep in mind with this list, it's mid-range. You can't win the mid-range battle if you don't see your 1, 2, 3. So if you draw a hand and you're like, oh, it has a dock in it, or it has no dock, so now you're like, it doesn't matter, right? You need a 1, 2, 3, and especially a turn 2. If you don't have a turn 2, and especially one of these Stinger 4s, you want to alter pretty high, all right? You want to go that route. That's one of the things that Sky and his training team, Wonderland and a bunch of those guys kind of suggested, is going just high altar, find that 1, 2, 3, so you can kind of get yourself out to control the board, to get to that mid-range point where you're controlling with the Rhino, the Beast, the Aerial, and then you use Be Our Guest to search for the cards that you need. Maybe it's Dock to draw 2 more cards, Aerial to find a song so you can ping for damage with an Aerial, Sonic Warrior. It doesn't matter, all right? The deck is very... Mid-range decks do one thing really well, and they find lines to win, okay? And that's the whole point. But if you lose the early game because you don't get that 1, 2, 3, or even that 2, 3, then you never make it to the mid-range point. So keep that in mind. But another really good list. So huge shout out to Sky for really brainstorming this and bringing it to light. Next up, we have Ed's list for Worlds. And with this list, I mentioned it early on. I think that this list, it just really falls off against red-blue. And as I say that, I think that there's still merit to it because, again, Beast and Namari. Now, 8 Stinger 4s is tough because that's a lot of cards that you just don't want to see against red-blue ever later on. Like, you just don't. What you really want to see against red-blue is that Smee. And that Smee is just a massive piece because a lot of time that Ursula, that Troubadour, is just going to sit there doing nothing past, or you quest with it and they slam a Maui into it, and that's fine, but it sings Zeus, which is great, but you're just not doing a lot early on, and meanwhile, you have no way to shut down red-blue either, so they can now just sit there and ramp and ramp and ramp, because if you go, like, let's say you don't see Shift Rhino, you go Cinderella on 1, Troubadour on 2, Aerial on 3, and then finally on turn 4, you might be able to play the big Rhino, right? And that's just rough because all of that time, red-blue doesn't care if you quest to 7 by turn, 5, because all you have is 1 questers. They're just going to ramp and draw and ramp and draw, and then you have no discard mechanics whatsoever. So they could just kind of sit there on they can sit there on B preps and manners and be perfectly happy with their win. Now, one of the things that is nice is Beast and Namari. Beast and Namari force a B prep out of your opponent. Like, that is really good. So if you can survive long enough and get enough lore in, you could be okay. But now your only draw in this list, because you have no dock, so your only draw is Rapunzel and Be Our Guest. And of course the pseudo Aerial and Let the Storm Rage on. But without dock, like, you're never getting super far ahead, and Beast, of course, but without that dock, you're losing a lot of ability there. So you just got to keep that in mind because you'll never get Rapunzel value against red-blue. You'll have to do it yourself, which means singing, your Ursula could sing Let the Storm Rage on herself, and then your Rapunzel value. So keep things that in mind as well. So you don't have the ability to play super fast. You get to your whole new world. You play whole new world. You go super wide again. Maybe you get another whole new world. And then finally, you can no longer deck out your opponent with a list like this. So you lose that win mechanic as well. So am I saying don't play the list? By no means. I am not saying that. If you don't think you're going to have a lot of red-blue in your local meta, I think running one or two of either one of these lists is going to find you a lot of success. I really do. I think you can't, I don't think you can go wrong to run either one of these lists if you think your meta is not going to have a lot of red-blue in it, because they're built to destroy other Amber Steel decks. So take that how you'd like it. So next up on our list, we have Rob, who took second place at the PPG 15K. And this list is very different right now. What's happening here, and we talked about this in my last video, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in this list than I did in my previous video. just to kind of talk, because people had a lot of questions about it. In this deck, I mentioned how powerful discard is on the draw, and this deck is really going hard on it. One thing to keep in mind is Rob really likes to play, he really likes that control your opponent's hand first, control their board, control their hand, and then do stuff. So you might not be questing for a whole lot. You have one questers. Like that's not a whole lot. Now you do have your 8, right? You have your 4 Smees, your 4 Lawrences, which are great. And so you do have your 2 questers, and that is really good because you can go super fast against red blue. You can go Cindy into Smee, into Lawrence, into Rhino, whatever you want, and that's going to be really powerful. So you do have that mechanic, but a lot of 1 questers. So what can happen is on the draw, when you get that extra card and your opponent doesn't, you can go Rhino into Shift Rhino on turn 2 maybe. Turn 3, you go Lawrence or Pete, so they can't sing songs. Turn 4, you play You Have Forgotten Me, right? And so now, because they didn't get that extra draw, they lose all those cards. So if you play You Have Forgotten Me and Bare Necessities, play Bare Necessities first, right? So you play Bare Necessities, you sing it on turn 4 to discard their song, and then You Have Forgotten Me. Most likely you just lost in their whole hand. If not, they keep 1 card maybe. So that is extremely powerful. So just keep that in mind. When you're playing this deck, you're not playing it fast, right? You're not trying to get to 20 anytime soon. You can, but you need to realize what your win conditions are. On the play, you can go that route. You have the Smees, you have the Lawrences, but on the draw, really you can really focus in on beating them by discarding their entire hand, and then you can work to get the draw you need from the docks, from the Rapunzel value, the Storm Rage on, the Ariel. One thing to keep in mind is you'll notice that this deck is on 4 Ursulas instead of 4 Troubadours. And if you're thinking of making that change, I don't recommend you do it. And the reason for that is you just don't have a lot of draw. If you looked at Sky's and Ed's list, they run those 4 Be Our Guests. And those 4 Be Our Guests are really big because you can search through your deck to find the card you need. But where we don't have them, this Ursula becomes really important because now you can use Ursula to sing Strength of a Raging Fire. If you have three characters, you sing Strength of a Raging Fire on herself to deal 3 damage, and then turn 4, heal her with Rapunzel to draw 3. You can use Let the Storm Rage on to deal damage to herself. Whereas if you have a Troubadour, you lose that draw capability because that Troubadour is only going to draw 1 off of Let the Storm Rage on. It's only going to draw 2 off of that Strength of a Raging Fire. So keep that in mind. So the list, it's like I said, if you thought mid-range was slow, like playing Skies and Ed's list, then imagine playing it a little bit slower, right? And it's not that the deck is great. The deck is phenomenal. This might be the best way to beat red blue, really, because you're not playing a whole new world. You're playing this You Have Forgotten Me and this Daisy Duck, and then you just kind of quest out while they have no cards or they're in top deck mode. And you don't quest down quickly. You just kind of quest down eventually, kind of like green yellow, which Rob has played a lot of in the past. So really huge shout out to Rob with coming up with something extremely unique that did really well. I think the last thing I'll mention is Daisy Duck can sing Zeus. Okay, she is a 4-cost card. She makes your opponent discard a card, and she can sing Zeus. So keep that in mind as well. That is just a great way to be able to control the board and their hand at the same exact time. So really great list. I definitely recommend giving it a try, but again, prepare that the deck is just it's a smidge slower in your playstyle, especially on the draw. So finally, we have Markoth's. We have his Pluto Apocalypse. I'm just gonna Apocalypse. I can't say it right. We have this Pluto Apocalypse deck and that Markoth sent me, and it's pretty unique. He said he's had a lot of success with the list, and Markoth was running Pluto's a lot at the end of last set. And I remember him talking about it a lot because this ability to play Pluto on 1 against some of these decks, and then turn 3 you can play Aerial, or turn 2 you can play Aerial, but even more important, turn 2 you can go Lady into Troubadour, Lady into Smee, or Lady into Rhino, and then shift Rhino on turn 3. Like, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with Pluto. Or you have the ability, you could go something like Pluto into Troubadour into turn 3, Prince Naveen plus Zeus, another great opportunity. And then finally, Pluto is an ally. So Pluto gives you the ability to get Miss Bianca down on turn 3. So that is something to keep in mind. And you have your allies here. You of course, you have the Troubadour, you have Smee, you have Pluto. So lots, and then Rhino. You have lots of capabilities of getting that Miss Bianca down early. So this deck has a lot of different ways to sing Whole New World, and it does have the Aerial, Naveens, and Biancas. It has the control power of the Aerial Sonic Warrior. It has the ability to go really fast with Lady plus Smee against Red Blue. So there's a lot of different things going on with this list. You're on 16 songs, so keep that in mind for Aerial. I think that's just above. I think that's like if you haven't seen any songs yet, I think that's around. I think it's 67% chant. No, I think 67 is 14 songs. But yeah, it doesn't matter. There's a chart out there. I recommend finding it. You can check it out in the 20 lore Steel song page. You can find it there. But the list, it's very unique. If you like Pluto, if that's always been a card that you really enjoy, it's a monster on the play. It really is. It is just such a great card on the play because you can go Pluto on 1, and then if they start Cindy because you didn't see your Cindy, you can play Pete on turn 2 and then let the Storm Rage on turn 3. Like, there's just so many different things you can do that Pluto allows you to do that you couldn't have done otherwise, because sometimes that Amber Steel mirror, if you go Rhino on turn, or like you play a 1-drop on 1, but their 1-drop is Cindy and they have let the Storm Rage on, you might just lose at that point because they get the extra card draw. So now, like, that's really great, and they control your board, so that's really great. But Pluto gives you another way to kind of answer not seeing your own Cindy, which is great. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think nope. Oh, yes. I wanted to end on honestly my favorite list. I think Justin's list is just, I think it's something special. I really do. I love Justin's list. I showed it off in my last video, and I keep wanting to do some gameplay commentary with it, and we just don't have time. But I think this list is special, and it's all about this Goofy, right? We have this aggro ability, right? We have the Daisy and Piglet and Smees and Lawrence's, but a lot of stuff questing for 2, right? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of our cards in this list that are questing for 2 or more, and you're just controlling your own board with damage, which is awesome because, like, let's talk about it. And one of the things that you're going to see, the easiest thing to see, is the Smee, right? Because now you play Goofy. Smee at the end of your turn takes the 1 damage if you don't have a captain down. So don't play captain or don't play Mr. Smee and Piglet if you're trying to make Goofy work in that line. But you can play Smee, tap him to quest with 2. He takes 1 damage and Goofy readies him. So that's the easiest one to see. But there's why the mines, right? We're only on 4 nights. And if you wanted to run 7, you could run the 3 happies and put that in here some way, somehow, however you wanted to go that route. But you could run that, or you just keep the 4 mines, because now what happens is you can go Daisy on 1, mine on 2. Turn 3, you play Aurora, you play Lawrence, you play Pete. Turn 4, you play the Goofy. And then now, going into your turn 5, you can now move things to the mine to ping yourself to then ready them, right? And it's just great. And we talked about it earlier. How you could ping your own character, ping your own Daisy with Daisy in mind. So now your Smee and your Daisy ready. And that's one, you don't have to clear Maui Half Shark if Maui Half Shark can't attack anything. Like that, it's amazing. I think it's the coolest thing ever. Now let's talk about Robin Hood. Initially, I was not a big fan of Robin Hood. I'll admit, at first I thought he was a 1-2-1, so that was a really big shutoff. He is a 1-3-1, but I just couldn't figure out, why do we run the 2 Robin Hoods over 2 Happies? And I also mentioned that you could run Dump Truck, Dumpy, right? The 1-drop on Inkable 0-1-1, you play him, you deal 1 damage to something. And I think you still could. I think you could still run either one of those cards and you'd be fine. And they just do things differently. But one of the nice things about Robin Hood, or why I hated him, is that he exerts himself to deal 1 damage to something to, enable the Goofy effect. And I thought, well, now they're just going to take out Robin Hood. And okay, fine, so be it. But I didn't think about the fact that if you have Robin Hood and Mine down, you could use Robin Hood to ping something with 7 Dwarfs Mine, and then you exert Robin Hood to deal 1 damage to himself, right? And now your Robin Hood will ready himself. And I didn't even think about the fact that now you have a constant enabler to ready your other characters, and then you move those other characters to Mine to ready Robin Hood, and so Goofy just continues to ready them all, and you can sit there and protect your 2 drops by them just never staying sideways. And I think so Robin Hood is just top tier in that ability to do that. Like I said, you're not wrong if you go Dump Truck or Happy. They just do things differently. Dump Truck also has the ability to help control your opponent's board on turn 1, which is really good. Curse Merfolk, answering things later on that might only have 1 HP left is really good. But finally, the last interesting card in here is Aurora. Why are we on Aurora, right? We could run Ariel. We could run Gaston's if we really wanted a singer. We could run so many different things on turn 3, but we're on Aurora. Well, for one, she has 4 health. So now she has to be Zeused a lot of the time. So that's really powerful. She can't be taken out by Belle. That's really powerful. She can sing any of your songs. That's really good. And she quests for 2. That's really good. But the other cool things is whenever you remove 1 or more damage from a character, ready this character. So now if you have a Smee down and then you go Aurora and then you go Goofy, your Smee. So you quest with Smee and the Aurora. You quest with Smee and Aurora. They both turn sideways. Your Smee takes the 1 damage because it's the end of your turn. But at the end of your turn, Goofy will then remove 1 damage from all your characters and ready them. So Smee turns sideways. He takes 1 damage. Aurora turns sideways. You end your turn, that's when the Smee takes the 1 damage. Goofy then removes the 1 damage off of Smee and readies him, and because you removed 1 damage from one of your characters, Aurora then readies herself. So just like that, Smee is enabling Aurora to ready herself. So again, there's just so many different things that this deck can do that Goofy enables, that Robin Hood enables, Mine, and I'm just a huge fan of Mine to begin with. You have Draw with Doc and Rapunzel. You have Bare Necessities. Now also Robin Hood, it's easier if you play him on turn 2. You can Rapunzel on turn 4 to get guaranteed value. So let's say you played Robin Hood on turn 2, or you play Smee on turn 2, and then you play Robin Hood on turn 3. Smee quest, he takes 1 damage. Robin Hood on turn 3 comes down, and then turn 4, after Smee's already taken 1 damage, you can turn him sideways and exert him to deal 1 more damage to Smee. So now he has 2 damage counters. You use Rapunzel to draw 2 cards. Or even if you don't have Smee, you just play Robin Hood on 2. He enables you to let you at least draw 1 card with Rapunzel. And then, of course, Bare Necessities. Again, a great card against Red-Blue early on, and all the Amber Steel. So, yeah, I'm a big fanboy of this list. I think what Justin came up with is really spectacular and really great. I will say, I think that, yeah, so he did lose to Rob with his discard package, and so that is something to be said. Whether, maybe, I know Rob was his draw was phenomenal that day, but again, all that discard that Rob has is going to do really well into a list that relies on Docs to draw and Rapunzels and things like that. So all in all, these are all the Amber Steel lists today. This is, I think you're not wrong to run any of these lists. I mean, they're all great. They all do something super special. Mid-range is all the rage right now But don't get me wrong, you could go with a hyper aggro list, and mid-range can't do anything if you just get to 20 lore. Red-blue can't do anything if you just get to 20 lore. Lots of ways to beat red-blue right now. A lot of people are definitely not feeling super high on Steel Song or a Whole New World period, and they think that if you run Whole New World, you're just losing yourself the game and you have only yourself to blame. But I think Whole New World still holds a lot of power right now. There's still something to be said about refilling your entire hand. All you need is a Pete to win, and then you use Whole New World, and you can now search for 7 cards. And if you've already used 1 or 2 aerials, you know what the bottom 4 to 8 to 16 cards are of your deck. So you're not using a Whole New World hoping to get lucky. You're using Whole New World knowing that there's a really, really good, statistically good chance that you're going to see your Pete. You're going to see your Zeus or whatever else you need. So don't count out Whole New World, okay? Don't count out Beyond the Horizon. Don't count out mine. The point is, there's a lot of lists that you can run right now and to see a lot of success with Amber Steel to beat the all-powerful red-blue. And it is possible, and it happens. It's not an easy matchup, but I do not believe that red-blue just flat out is guaranteed to win anymore. Worst case scenario, I think it's 50-50. And that's not out of bias. That's not out of anything like that. I did start this video off saying I think red-blue Sharks is the best deck in the format. But I'm not going to say that it just flat out beats Amber Steel because that just doesn't happen anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you win, okay? Let me know what list you're excited to use. Let me know what Amber Steel list you're excited to use, but let me know how you do with your set champs and if you want your deck featured. With all that being said, remember, nothing else matters more than staying happy and healthy. I'll see you around, all right?